just known something, like deep in your bones, but then when you try to explain it, you can't find the words? Well, today, we're going to dig into the architecture of that feeling, the very structure of how we know what we know. So let's just start with a big question right up front. Can you really know something that you just can't prove? Think about that for a second. This question, it really gets to the heart of this huge tension in our world, a split between two completely different ways of understanding reality. All right, to start unpacking this whole puzzle, let's talk about a feeling we've all had, what we could call the gap in knowing.
I'm sure this feels familiar. We've all been there, right? Trying to spell out exactly why you love someone or what makes a certain action truly good. You know it, you feel it with total clarity, but the words, they just fall short. And here's the key, that isn't a failure on your part. It's not that you don't understand. It's a limitation of language itself. It's an expression gap.
So, this gap exists for a reason. It's because we actually engage with the world through two very different paths to knowledge. Let's break those down.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got empirical knowledge. This is the stuff of science. It all comes from measurement. It has to be verified by other people, and it's got to be repeatable. It's all about observable outputs, things you can see and touch and measure. But then on the other side of the coin, you have non-empirical knowledge, and this is a different beast entirely. This kind of knowing comes from direct recognition. It's verified internally by how well it all fits together, by its coherence. And it's all about getting a feel for the underlying structure of a thing, not just its surface effects. Now, the second path, it actually has a name, gnosis. And look, this isn't some vague, mystical idea. It's a really precise term. It means knowledge you get by directly recognizing the logos. You can think of the logos as the underlying operating system of reality. So gnosis is about seeing the code that generates the world, not just looking at the apps running on your screen. And here is where things get really interesting, because this is where the two paths actually meet. Both modern science and gnosis agree on one absolutely critical point. Real knowing isn't just about collecting a pile of facts. It's about recognizing the pattern that organizes all those facts and gives them meaning. So, if both are valid ways of seeing patterns, why does it feel like they're always in conflict? Well, it all boils down to a translation problem. The root of the problem is this simple, powerful bias. When something cannot be demonstrated, it is treated as if it is not known. You know, our whole world is geared towards external proof. If you can't stick it in a spreadsheet or a repeatable experiment, it often gets dismissed as, well, not real knowledge.
But here's the thing, that's a fundamental mistake. Philosophers call it a category error. It's like we're judging one kind of knowledge by the rules of a totally different game. It's like trying to measure the beauty of a song with a yardstick. The tool is just completely wrong for the job. So the fight isn't about which path is true. It's really a failure of translation. When you try to cram a deep, holistic, structural understanding into these tiny little boxes of measurable data points, it shatters, it fragments. You lose the very thing, the coherence, that gave it meaning in the first place. Okay, so how do we resolve this? How do we fix this conflict? Well, it all comes down to realizing that there is one single structure underneath it all. And this is the absolute key. The big mistake isn't in seeing two ways of knowing. It's assuming they point to two different realities. They don't. There's only one underlying structure. There is one logos. So what is the logos exactly? It's the single generative order that gives rise to everything, all of reality, both the stuff we can measure with our fancy instruments and the stuff we can only grasp through that direct recognition. It is the source code for the whole shebang. So, you should think of these as convergent methods, not competing realities. The empirical scientific methods, they access the logos by studying its external outputs. They're asking what happens. The non-empirical Gnostic methods, they access the exact same logos, but by directly recognizing its internal structure. They're asking how and why. At the end of the day, they're just two different windows looking out onto the very same landscape. Now that we have this framework, we can take a fresh look at a really loaded and famously misunderstood concept, faith. So, what if faith isn't about belief without evidence? What if instead, faith is simply the position you hold when you understand something that you know is true, but that just can't be fully transmitted or proven to other people? Seen this way, faith isn't an absence of knowing at all. It's a deep alignment with a recognized pattern, a pattern that just happens to resist being measured empirically. And that brings us right back to you. I want to leave you with this to think about. What pattern do you recognize in your own life with absolute clarity that measurement, no matter how precise, simply cannot capture?